Hey everyone, today I'm taking a look at Rumble Nation, which is a 2 to 4 player area majority style board game designed by Shinichi Yogi. This one takes 30 minutes to play on average. So the board of Rumble Nation is going to look like this, where you've got this map here which is divided up into these different sections, and you can see that these tokens here, these big castle tokens, have been divided up randomly onto each of these sections, and you've also got a smaller token next to it which is going to be half the points rounded down. Now the objective is to try and control these regions by placing cubes of your colour in them, and to be the person with the most of cubes in there, because you're going to get the amount of points if you do. So first place is going to get 10 and second place is going to get 5 in this example. There's also going to be a bunch of these action cards that are going to be displayed depending on the player count. So I think it's the player count plus 1. So in a 4-player game, there'll be 5 cards. Now you can see here that this is in a foreign language and it's not in English because this game is quite hard to get hold of. So I had to pick up an Italian or French version. So you've also got these neutral white cubes which can potentially come into play later should you win regions to booster or bolster the adjacent regions. You're going to have some dice which you can play with, which is going to be how you're going to distribute cubes onto the map. And each player is also going to have their own little player mark here just to show which colour you represent. There's also a number of these sword tokens depending on the player count. Now this is going to be important for later, because if you are the first person to distribute all your cubes onto the board, you're going to take the highest token, which can potentially break ties later in the game. So the game is going to get divided into 2 pretty distinct halves, the first of which is when people are going to be distributing their cubes out onto the board, and the second of which is where all the different regions are resolved. Now the main action that you're going to do most of the game is to roll the 3 dice here like so, and then divide them into a single die and a pair of dice. Now this is important because the pair of dice is going to show which region you go into, and the single die is going to show how many cubes go into that region. So in this example, if I want to divide it up into this 6 and the 1, the 6 is going to show which region I go into, i.e. this one over here, number 6, and the 1 is going to show how many cubes go into that region using this little chart here. So if you roll a 1 or a 2, you're going to put 1 cube in there. If you roll a 3 or a 4, it'll be 2 cubes. And if you put a 5 or a 6, it'll be 3 cubes. So let's just say I did make that choice. I'll take my 1 cube, let's say I was the blue player, and I'll place it into region 6, therefore increasing my influence in that region. If you're not entirely happy with what you've rolled, you do have one opportunity to re-roll and redistribute and pair them off as you see fit. Now you also have an option to play one of these action cards, or to select one of these action cards before you roll those dice, and they will let you do little things such as moving your cubes from border to border, or maybe moving half your cubes rounded up from section to section, kicking someone out of your region. This one here lets you kind of bring in resources to this region here from the adjacent regions, or even this one here that lets you just bring one out straight from your supply onto the board. And there is a variation of these, so they're going to change from game to game. However, when someone selects them, they're going to be taken from the supply, meaning that nobody else can take it through the duration of the game. And once these are all taken, then nobody else is going to have that option. So once all the players have placed all their cubes by rolling those dice and allocating them accordingly, then you're going to go into the second phase of the game, where each of these different regions is evaluated and points are distributed. So we're going to start at the lowest region, which is the number 2 here. You're going to have a look who's got the most cubes. In this example, it's going to be the red player because they've got 4 cubes. The yellow player is going to be in second place with 3. The blue's got 2 and black's got 1. So the biggest token is going to go to the red player for endgame points, and the smaller token is going to go to the yellow. Now it's also important to win regions because you can start spawning out these resource cubes here to bolster your adjacent forces. So as red was the winner, they are going to take a number of cubes, depending on the player count, but generally it's 2, and basically bolster every adjacent regions where they have a presence. So therefore, these 2 white cubes will spawn out into adjacent region 3 here, which is now going to give them the lead over the blue player. And that's going to also apply to this region up here, again, where the red player's got the most. So that's going to be another 2 there, which is going to increase their lead there. It's also going to come to a region 11 here, which again is going to now give them a tie on that region. And they didn't have any presence in this region, so therefore there will be no cubes going into that region. And once that's done, again, you can kind of remove all these cubes here because it's not going to make a difference. And you can go on to the next region. So again, it'll be here. The red player will take these 3 points and the blue player will take this 1 point token. And again, all the adjacent regions are going to get boosted up as long as you've got that colour there to increase your presence. Now this one you can see has really been built up. And that is essentially as the game works. You know, once you've gone through all the regions, you're going to calculate who's got the most victory points, and the player with the most victory points will be the winner. So let's get into my thoughts on Rumble Nation. So first off, I love how simple this game operates. You know, very, very easy to understand. Just rolling those 3 dice and allocating them and distributing them as you see fit. You know, am I going to put 1 cube in 5? Or am I going to put 1 cube in 6? Or am I going to put 2 cubes in 3? You know, who knows, depending on the layout of the board. And I love how different this changes from game to game. And you know, the order in which these are distributed onto the board changes the game massively. Now, for example, this 2 region here is so important in this layout because it's going to influence so many other regions. Now, if a 2's right over here in the corner, then it's probably not going to be as impactful because it's only going to influence the next region. But here, you've got so much kind of stakes because you can, if you have a little bit of presence at all these adjacent ones, then you can really boost up to help you going forward. And that kind of cascading, that domino effect, that chain reaction is something that I haven't really seen before, and it really does ramp up the competition to win these regions, because you know, not only are the big regions important, or the higher valued regions important because you're going to get a massive chunk of points for winning them, but the lower ones are great as well because they can be worth investing in, because they can again boost you up as you go along, and as you boost and boost and boost, you can create some massive combos. By the time it gets to that kind of 5-6 region, you can have a hell of a lot of these mustering cubes to help you win that region. But again, it all depends on the layout of the board, because sometimes things can get cut off, and you need to almost like foresee the way that these cubes are going to cascade and where those routes end and where you need to invest in and predict what's going to happen. But I like the fact that the game is very well, you know, you can plan things out quite accurately and see what's going to happen, but you are always kind of boxed in by the dice rolls. So while there is a lot of scope for, I suppose, analysis paralysis here, if you weren't tunnel vision to this dice roll, these really do help you kind of think, you know, work with what you've got. You know, how am I going to divide these out? Am I going to re-roll? What's going to be best for me? You know, is it best for me to just settle with what I've got, or should I go for that re-roll and maybe do better or maybe do worse? I also think that these action cards are a good bonus to the game, or a good addition to the game, because these give you a good kind of contingency and a good option to utilise in the right situation. And it also lets you kind of sit back and see how the board develops before you might want to start investing in things. You know, maybe you've gone all in on a certain region that you want to win or you need to win, and then you can start using this card here to kick someone out of that region. But bearing in mind that these are very scarce and you need to use them quickly before the other people start gobbling them up. But at the same time, you're also somewhat incentivized to put your cubes down on the board quicker, because if you do, you're going to get that higher sword token, meaning that you're going to break those ties. But again, you're going to give your opponent a bit more clarity on where they should start investing in the different regions. So again, that's striking the balance between the two of stalling somewhat so you can see how things develop, but not stalling too much so you have the worst tie-breaking sword token. I think the time investment for this game is pretty much sublime. This might be one of the meatiest and richest experience that I have in such a short time frame. It only takes 30 minutes to play, and it feels like you're playing quite an involved game here. Yeah, it's simple and quick to understand, but it does have a lot of the tropes that you'd like to see in more, in bigger and grander area control style games. And I love the way that the game is divided into 2 very distinct sections. The first of which is when you're distributing things out on the board, but then the second of which is just to sit back, enjoy the carnage and chaos and see how things played out. And then the game is over. So it's not like you have to reset things or re-rack the whole game, or you don't have any housekeeping or anything like that. So I just love that 2-phase system where build, resolve, and the game is over. So it kind of leaves you, or the lasting impression you have on the game is very positive and it's upbeat, and it definitely feels like it's snappy and punchy. The uptime of the game is also very strong. I mean, there's not really much scope for analysis paralysis because, you are only kind of restricted to what you've rolled with the dice, so there's not that many options you need to work out. Of course, you could take the bonus actions, but again, it's not like you're going to have long drawn out turns that are going to leave the other people disengaged. So yeah, the time investment in general is of a very high standard. I also think that the replayability of the game is very good, not only because of the pure variation of how the board is going to play out each time based on the laying of these different tokens, but also because you are getting such a big experience in a short time frame. Normally when you have a 30-minute game, you're going to have to sacrifice some depth or some strategy because you are playing such a quick game. But this one offers, again, that next level of gameplay in the same amount of time, which probably means, at least for me, that you're going to lean for it more often than not and pull it off the shelf and get it to the table. The game is all about the player interaction. How much are you willing to invest in these different regions? Are you going to just sit back and maybe just be happy with winning by 1 or 2 and invest elsewhere, hoping that your opponent won't re-roll or roll a certain number again and muster up that region and overtake you? So again, striking that balance between them, when to go all in, when to sit back, and when to just marginally win and hopefully gain those kind of resource cubes to bolster your forces, is where the magic really lies, and that all depends on the other players. And that also relates to the scarcity of the action cards. When is the time to grab them? Should you wait, or should you just use it while you have the opportunity? The production of the game is very good. I mean, I like the way the game looks. It's nice and clean. It's certainly not overdone, and it's nice and crisp, and you can clearly see what all the different regions are. I love how vibrant all the different colours, the coloured cubes are. You can clearly see who's who, even if you're colourblind. They're very easy to differentiate. They're also of a good size as well, slightly bigger than your average size cube. The only issue I had with the production was that the game did come with these rather boring, small, cheap little dice. And considering dice rolling is a big part of this game, I thought that it was quite important to replace them with my own personal dice, just to make it a bit more satisfying when you're rolling them, and just to add a bit more tactility to the game. But I think once you do that, then you'll be very happy with the way the game is produced. Okay, so let's get into my final thoughts on Rumble Nation. So as I mentioned before, I don't think there are many games out there that strike the balance between being accessible, ultra quick, but still offering a depth and plethora of decisions here and consequences to your actions. And I love the way that you can foresee things happening here. This cascading mechanism where you can bolster your troops is fascinating. I've not seen it used before, and I love the way it plays out and it resolves. And I also think that this game might be one that would sway people who aren't so keen on more confrontational or area majority style games, because I know there are a lot of people out there who don't like it. They don't really like that long drawn out uncomfortable tension between jostling for position and things. This one is almost like completely eliminates that part of the game, because you are just building, watch it resolve, and then the game is over. And I think that you always leave the game feeling high on this one, whether it goes really badly or not. You don't feel like you've been pulverized or you've been kind of outsmarted when you do this one. It just kind of plays out the way it plays out. Sometimes it's going to work with you, sometimes it's going to work against you. But if you do want that extra level of strategy and think it to that level, then you can do, because you can very carefully see what's going to lead to what. This 2 regions going to affect all these regions here. Yeah, the 11 region is great because it's going to affect the 12. The 12 is great because it's going to offer you a whole bunch of points, but it's not going to influence the others. And just those little decisions just add, those wrinkles to make the game feeling satisfying. But again, going back to the fact this does play comfortably under 30 minutes is wonderful for me. This has been hitting the table regularly since I got this one. Everyone's enjoyed it, all different experiences of gaming. And I think it strikes that great balance of, again, being versatile and appealing to a lot of different people. And this one should be a monster hit. I really do feel like this game should be picked up by a company and just, they don't even have to do anything with it. Just launch it. Again, give it a bit of spotlight, because I think a lot of people could enjoy this one, but nobody knows about it. And again, it has all those ingredients to be a big hit. So that is Rumble Nation. Definitely deserves a shield of quality. I think this is fantastic. Check this one out.